Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, Jaybefaunt Leroy. Beautiful Tuesday, to all of you. Today is May 20th, 2025. I am your host, Jaybefaunt Leroy. Nice to have you all and welcome back. To let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show and Sundays for the JB show. So if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people, to encourage and inspire and activate. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So thank you there. Also, if you guys would like to get any type of reactions through video, or if you guys would like for me to react to something, then you guys could do it through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. So thank you very much for that. It supports the channel. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful day. So I'm going to do my customary hello to everybody, and then we'll get into the stories that we have for today. So let's show some of these beautiful people who are up in here. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, Jaybefaunt, good to see you, Jacqueline. Nice to have you here. Kat T says, hi, JB. Thank you so very much for the rhyme. We have Terry Connolly coming in saying, good afternoon, JB and comrades. Good to see you, Terry. All right, we have the illustrious and prodigious Kate Mack saying, hey, JB, great to see you, love. Forehead kisses. Absolutely, forehead kisses to you too, Kate Mack. All right, so good to see everybody in. Come on in, come on in. Just to let you guys know, I want to share something special with you guys really quick. Just so you guys know, I also now have a Kick channel. So if you guys would like to also, if you guys are not down with the tube anymore, because I don't have a Rockfin anymore, and also Rumble, as far as paying anything, Rumble really doesn't help me at all. If you guys would like to support through watching through Kick, if you guys would like to, then you guys also have that there too as well. I'm just going to share with you guys my screen. So this is the Kick channel. Just to let you guys know, it's kick.com/Jaybefaunt. So you guys have that there as well. So if anybody wants to watch on Kick, then you guys can. I'll put the link in the chat if you guys want to. And help me get to the point where I'm monetized, so I can actually get paid for my labor in that way. So thank you very much for that. So you guys have that as well. So you guys have the Kick. And so thank you so very much for that. And yeah, so that's what's new as far as my channel goes. So I'm venturing into that stage of, getting a new platform. And plus, Kick is kind of what's new and popping now. And plus, and some people may ask me, like, do you have a Twitch? I did have a Twitch. The problem is that one of the terms of service of Twitch that came about in I would say it was 2024 or 2025. I think it was close to 2025. Was that you could not criticize Israel or Zionism. Now, some people, do what they can to get around that. I said, you know what? I'm not going to be on Twitch then. And so that's what I did. I exited from Twitch, and even though I still could stream there, I just don't. And plus, on top of that, I really didn't get much of an audience on Twitch. And I would get the random troll, but that would be about it. And so I was just like, you know what? Nah, I'm not going to do that. So I decided to move on to greener pastures for me. So, but if there is, if I do have, an opportunity to go back to them, maybe, if I can still continue to keep, keep my autonomy and be able to criticize, settler colonial states, then I'll definitely be able to do that. So thank you very much to everybody for that. Also, we have Eric T. Red coming in saying, hi, all. And yes, he says, time to start kicking it. Just kick it. Yeah, just kick it. Take off your shoes and relax your feet. No, let me stop. Let me stop. Let me stop. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make your ears bleed. So let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. We have, of course, 3 segments that we're going to get into. Hey, how you doing, Vera? Nice to see you. Thumbs up to you too. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into today's stories. So we have 3. So later in the show today, we're going to be talking about the California governor, Gavin Newsom, versus the homeless. So this is really going to be showing just how the Democrats are not just feckless, but the Democrats are more like Republicans than most people are willing to admit. And so I'm going to be sharing this story that, of course, I heard about last week, but I wanted to, just let it simmer for a little bit. And so I'll be doing that just, as much as I possibly can to just let people know that both parties are, they're not for us. And then towards the middle of the show, we're going to be talking about John Morgan, right? So hang on just 1 second. Sorry. We're going to be talking about John Morgan because John Morgan is a famous attorney in the United States with one of the, if not the largest law firm in the country. You guys probably know his face. And so he's running for governor of Florida. We're going to talk about this. And here's the crazy part. He's not running as a Democrat or a Republican. This is going to be a conversation. But first, we're going to get into something that's a little bit kind of serious, pretty serious, and it's going to be absolutely necessary for us to get into. And this one has to do with what's going on in North Gaza in a hospital. So we'll be covering that first. So with that, we'll be getting into this hospital attacked in North Gaza. So we're going to get into that right now. So, of course, the settler colonial state, also known as Israel, decided to attack another hospital. And this time, this hospital is in North Gaza. Let's get into this and just share. This has been just another part of the 21st century Holocaust that we are seeing as of right now. So let's go into this. It's a Middle East Monitor. It says Israel bulldozes demolished wall of Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza. So it shows that people, Palestinians, mourning the deceased. It says Israeli bulldozers demolished the northern wall of an Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza today, according to RT's Arabic correspondent in the besieged enclave. The Director General of Ministry of Health in Gaza stated that the occupation targeted the health system by bombing hospitals and patients. He added that Israeli occupation forces opened fire on the intensive care unit of the Indonesian hospital. Let's stop there for a second. This is how you know the entity that's going against you is wicked and cruel, because they're literally attacking the ICU. What did they do? What did they do to you? People who are the sickest of the sick in the intensive care unit. You decide to bomb the ICU? Is this Israel defending itself? Doesn't seem like it's me. Seems like Israel really is just trying to exterminate the population, starting off with the sickest among us. Peep game and pay close attention to how they treat people in that region. Let's continue. It says occupation aircraft targeted a patient inside the Indonesian hospital. The director general, who also expressed hope that aid, including food and medicines, would soon be allowed in Gaza soon. Earlier today, several Palestinians were killed and injured in an Israeli strike on a tent sheltering displaced persons in Yarmouk area of central Gaza. Airstrikes are also targeted in eastern Abasan al-Kabira, east of Khan Yunis, where the home of Abu Tir family was struck, resulting in multiple injuries. Meanwhile, Palestinian media outlets reported that Israeli aircraft struck a house near a Jordanian field hospital west of Khan Yunis. So when people talk about Israel has a right to defend itself from the sick, defend itself from the infirm, defend itself from what? As somebody who is dealing with a chronic illness, as somebody that is that had dealt with, being in intensive care unit multiple times, who have been in the hospital multiple times. I was in the hospital before the transplant. I was in hospital for 17 days back in February. I want you to think that if you're in the hospital trying to recover, trying to get better, and then you suffer even further trauma by being bombed, how is that Israel defending itself? That's not. That is a sick and twisted move, because really extermination is the goal. People can say whatever they want, but their actions speak louder than their words. What's going on right now in Palestine is unconscionable. There are people who are starving right now, which is another way of ethnically cleansing, exterminating the population so that they can move in and take the rest of the land over. Let's just take a look at this headline. This is from Rania Kalik of Breakthrough News. She said Israel is about to murder 14,000 babies, and people still won't call it a genocide. Bernie Sanders. Look at this. It says, first thing, the UN says 14,000 babies could die in Gaza in the next 48 hours under Israeli aid blockade. It says UK, France, and Canada warn Israel of action if egregious conduct in Gaza continues, plus Trump and Putin discuss Ukraine. I want to humanize this, because a lot of times the Zionists will dehumanize the people here. I want to humanize them as being part of a marginalized group. One of the goals that fascists typically do is they dehumanize marginalized people in order for you to look down upon them, to be okay, to co-sign, to manufacture consent for their destruction. This happens to Palestinians. This happens to immigrants. This happens to LGBTQ people. This happens to Black people. This happens to disabled people, where we are demonized and told by the powers that be that we are unhuman, we're worthless. So therefore, feeling bad about their plot, their plight, it it shouldn't really affect you because there are these evil people among them. Meanwhile, the real evil people are the ones that are starving, blocking aid from coming in. 14,000 babies. And you wonder who's on the right side of history? Palestine has a right to defend itself. Full stop. Palestine has a right to defend itself. And I don't care if you're going to go, oh my God, but Hamas. Let me tell you something, baby. If you are occupying the land of somebody else, the people who are being occupied have a right to defend themselves by international law. Go ahead, look it up. Cry to your big bone mama. I don't care. All right. But this right here should not be happening. It should not. And this is happening in so many different places around the world, all because of imperialism, settler colonialism, neocolonialism, and fueled by capitalism, that this keeps happening. And so when we talk about building mutual aid, building dual power, fighting against this system, that also means helping people like the Palestinians out, the people in Congo, Sudan, Haiti. It means helping out Black Americans that are still suffering in this country. We've been suffering in this country for over 400 years. And the minute we want recompense and restitution for the suffering that we have gone through, people want to get their tidy whities in a bunch and go, oh my God, you guys want reparations. You guys shouldn't get that. This is why solidarity is so important among many different types of groups. Because that solidarity can save us all. But we have to see ourselves in each other. What if that was your loved one in the hospital? What if that was your kid starving? What if that was your niece, your nephew, your little brother, little sister, little sibling? Would you stand for that? I'm willing to bet a bunch of y'all would probably take up arms to fight that entity too. This is why this system has to end. Because bombing hospitals, starving people, and they just had the anniversary, the 77th anniversary of the Nakba. It's crazy. There should not be a 78th year. Like always, free Palestine from the river to the sea. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. We're going to go into the chats and thank you for that. All right. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so I know you guys have some things to say. Let's get into it. Yes, Eric T. Red says they are corrupt. Absolutely. They started out corrupt, and they're going to end. Their corruption is going to be their undoing, and that's basically. It's look. The corruption is going to be their undoing in Israel, the same way it's going to be the undoing of the United States too. People are going to look at me like, JB, what do you mean? A state that started off by committing genocide, it's not going to fare well. How you begin is how you're going to end. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the United States, I see it's not going to end very well for this country because they refuse to change course. So yeah, let me see. GP says greetings from Florida. Well, greetings from Florida to you too. Orlando here. Kate Max says, "Oh my God, it never ends." That's why it depends on us. We have to make it end. Look, everybody uses this phrase, but I want to add a question to it. And of course, I've heard Obama say this phrase too. The arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice. But who does the bending? We have to bend it. That means we have to force it to go towards justice. And we can do it. We just have to realize our power. Jimmy says these people are truly evil. Yeah. It's wicked. It's cruel. You know? Jacqueline says these people are showing us the monsters truly exist. Yeah. Yep. And I get it, Sean Miller. I get it. Yeah, I want to cuss too. Wadi says, hey, everybody. Good to see you, Wadi. Let me see here. Yeah. Eric T. Red says hospitals have a right to exist. They do. But according to Israel, they don't. Jacqueline asks, are the people in Israel self-aware enough to realize that they are using exactly the same tactics and strategies as the Nazis? Some are and some don't care. And then also a good answer from Jimmy says this is all about cognitive dissonance. Well, we're not like them. No, the Nazis were bad. They were doing stuff against us. What we're doing is we're just trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to keep our bloodlines pure. This region was promised to us by God 3,000 years ago. Even though a majority of us lived in Europe most of the time. And the people who actually occupied this land thousands of years ago are still occupying the land. Oh boy, I'm telling you. Yeah. Jay says hi. Hello, Jay. Good to see you. Eric says corporate media is starting to call out what's happening in Gaza more lately, which is interesting because the tide is shifting. There's a shift now where it is now socially acceptable to call out Israel. It has now become socially acceptable to condemn the genocide in Gaza because we forced it to be socially acceptable to condemn it. And so now a lot more people are starting to go against the genocidal state. With that, it is culture. And then what follows culture is policy. Now, the powers that be are going to fight against it, which means that the people are going to put up resistance. And we've seen the resistance happen over and over. This is graduation season. Everybody see that NYU student that gave that speech where he mentioned the genocide in Gaza? There are now multiple graduates, valedictorians, that are giving their speeches and talking about what's going on in Gaza. I hope to Vishnu, Thor, Jesus, Cthulhu, I pray to all of them that somebody mentioned that the valedictorian mentions the genocide in Gaza at my niece's graduation. I hope it happens. Even though, yes, it is a high school graduation. I hope a valedictorian mentions it. If they do, I'm giving a standing applause. I'm giving a standing ovation. I'm standing up and clapping. Because ultimately it needs to be called out, not just at the college level, but high school kids. I'm gonna tell you, if you're in high school, I know a lot of people who are that age don't really watch my channel, but if you're in high school and you have social media, you see what's going on. If you're the valedictorian and you're about to give a speech, how brave of it would it be if you called it out despite whatever the administration says? You have to be the lion in the room. You have to be the lion in the room full of sheep. Because guess what? I'm going to tell you something. The moment you make that roar, a lot of people are going to back you up. A lot of people. I'll be one of them. Boy, I'm telling you. Let me see. Wadi says, I suspect they want to reduce their complicity for how they are covering the genocide, as well as trying to clean up their image for posterity, which probably won't work in the end. Possibly, yeah. Because the thing is that they're trying to walk this tightrope where they want to look good to the Zionists, but they also they don't want to alienate themselves from the people who are moving into the anti-Zionist camp. And the problem is that it is now socially acceptable. Hell, it's now becoming popular to be anti-Zionist. And so because it's shifting in that way, they now have to go, well, we don't think genocide is cool either, blah, 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 blah. It reminds me of the companies that supported the Nazi party in Germany. And, they don't really talk about it. They kind of brush it to the side. They brush it away. Like, for instance, Volkswagen, I think BMW, Hugo Boss, all these different like German brands that everybody talks about. Oh my God, it's a luxury brand. It's German. They were down with the Nazi party. Henry Ford was team Nazi. Hell, there are rumors that Walt Disney was team Nazi. They cleaned up their image so that people won't be against them when they found out that, well, the world doesn't really like fascists. Wasn't it Time magazine that put Adolf Hitler as Time's Person of the Year? That was Time magazine. They put Adolf Hitler as Person of the Year. You don't see them talk about it though. Wonder why. Damn, this tea is good. I put a lot of lemon in it. But that's what they do. They have to clean up their image so that when it comes time for you to look for a news outlet, well, here we are. Oh yeah, we don't do that anymore. We're good now. Until the bottom line favors being fascist, then they'll switch on you. It's kind of like these companies with the DEI. DEI wasn't a government requirement. It was really just corporations trying to make themselves look good to the marginalized. And so they did DEI. And then as soon as it became more popular to be more white supremacist adjacent, or to resist being, for diversity, equity, inclusion, guess what? They said, all right, we're done with you people. We're going back to the other direction. Why? Because it was about the money. When it comes down to money, there is no real moral standing. It only goes the way the cultural wind blows. It doesn't have an integrity. It doesn't have a standing. It's the same thing with corporate news. Emphasis on the corporate, right? They have to go which way the wind blows. If genocide is largely okay, they're going to stick on the side of genocide. If genocide is largely not okay, then they're going to try to, cozy up to that camp. And that's the shift that we're seeing right now. This is why it's important to support independent media, because when it comes to integrity, we stand on business, 10 toes down. That's how it has to be. All right. And then Roger says, with perfect timing, I was just watching Crystal Ball before you came on regarding the subject. I just sent 3 things. 2 are the same subject, but the third same in regards to laws and executive orders. Okay. And then I'll get to that in a second. Jay says some will prioritize their college admission. And then Teresa says Crystal and Kyle are followers, not leaders. Yeah. Let me see. Bad Wolf says whitewashing. Yep. And yes, Roger says Adidas too. Yep. Adidas was definitely down with the Nazi party back in the day. Rondo says, have y'all heard that the black governor of Maryland, Wes Coonmore, vetoed a bill establishing a reparations work group? I was going to talk about that. I don't know. Should I talk about that today? Because I'm going to be honest with you. If I talk about it, I'm going to go in on Westmore. I'm going to go in on him, because ain't no way you're going to be a black man in America. I don't care. Look, and here's the thing. I don't care if he's, his parents are immigrants, right? You should have solidarity with other people who look like you, who have suffered, right? Because Jamaicans are also descendants of slaves, but they're descendants of slaves from England. So therefore, you should have solidarity with us, and you should be able to support and go, hey, you know what? Even though it won't affect me personally by getting reparations, you know what? I'm going to stand next to my Black American, brethren and say, hey, you know what? Reparations, I'm down with that. Let's sign it. Oh my God. Oh my. Oof. Look, if I do that as a bonus story today, I don't even have a thumbnail made for it. But if I do that as a bonus story today, I'm going in on Westmore. I will not be nice, because that is some bullshit. I should have known. I should have known who he was when he appeared on Oprah them years ago. Wesley and his fantastic ass. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject, but yeah. Guys, let me know if you want me to cover it. All right, so let me see. Oh, snap, Roger. What's this? Okay. Huh. Wait a second. Hold up. Roger sent me this. This is from Democracy Now! It says Project Esther. New York Times details right-wing plan to rebrand all critics of Israel as Hamas supporters. It says the new report in the New York Times takes a deep dive into Project Esther, a policy blueprint to crush the pro-Palestine movement in the United States from the Heritage Foundation, the right-wing think tank best known for spearheading Project 2025. Project Esther was formed during the Biden administration. It lays out plans for surveilling, silencing, and punishing pro-Palestinian activists, including deporting non-U.S. citizens and withholding funds from universities. Many of the Heritage Foundation's proposals appear to have been taken up by the Trump administration. Project Esther aims to rebrand all critics of Israel and pro-Palestinian protesters as providing material support for terrorism. They are very explicit, and this is what they're doing. This is all laid out online, and it has been for months. So Katie Baker says, so I found out the architect behind Project Esther said that there's no coincidence that what we're seeing in terms of actions taken against universities and pro-Palestinian protesters on a federal, state, and local level is happening months after they released the report. And Amy Gooden asked, you name names and talk to people behind Project Esther to tell us who they are. She said, the woman overseeing Project Esther is Victoria Coates. She's former national security advisor to Trump during his first administration, and she has a long history of working on Israeli matters. And then Robert Greenway ran the Abraham Accords, and he's one of the co-authors of Project Esther. She said how many Jewish groups are involved in shaping Project Esther. As the leaders of Project Esther talk about combating anti-Semitism, she said Project Esther aims at rebranding all critics of Israel and pro-Palestine protesters as providing material support for terrorism. So that means that anyone who has ever participated in a Palestinian protest at a university, for example, is potentially providing material support and should be fired or deported or otherwise ostracized from what they call open society. And there's not very many Jewish groups involved in this project. There are a few, but the task force is inspired. Project Esther was primarily Christian right-wing organizations. Oh my gosh. Here's the thing. Okay, Roger, thank you for sending me this. Most Zionists are Christian. They're not Jewish. Most Zionists are Christian. And so here's the thing that people got to understand, right? It's not, we can't fall into the camp of it's the Jews, right? Because the thing is like, yeah, you know, there's some Zionists that are Jewish, right? Who are pushing a certain narrative, but there's a lot more Zionists that are Christian. Why? Because they want to bring about the rapture. They want to bring about the end times, right? And so they're using Jewish people in order to try to get God to come in and step in and do whatever, you know, they believe that he'll do. But the problem is that it's a using of a people, right? And then because last night, actually, we touched on some of this. I was on with Jen Perlman and Peter on generational change last night. If you guys want to, you guys can also go ahead and look at that live stream. It was a really great conversation. But Jim Perlman, one of the interesting things that she mentioned is that, and I can see why she's pissed. She's pissed off at Zionists because she said that she felt used by them in order to push this genocidal narrative, to push this genocidal action, right? And so it's nefarious. And now that there's this group, and I'm gonna be honest with you, how many Democrats would be on board for this? Just because it's from the Heritage Foundation doesn't mean the Democrats are going to be against it. I mean, look at Barack Obama. I mean, the Affordable Care Act that Obama passed was actually a Heritage Foundation plan. Originally, it was Romney Care before it was Obamacare. So when it comes to Obama, he's cool with some of the Heritage Foundation plans too. So I look at both parties and say, yeah, they will be down for this. People who accept AIPAC money, people who accept J Street money, people who accept money from these right-wing religious groups, yeah, they will be on board with it. But that is very interesting. I'm going to share this into the chat because I don't have time to read the entire thing, but thank you very much for this, Roger. And I know you have a couple other things. I'm not sure if I have enough time to get into those. Let me see. Oh, that's the New York Times article. All right, so here's what I'll do. I'll share the New York Times article in the chat so that people have that. In fact, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the archived version of that article so that nobody has to go through a paywall. All right? We're going to get the archived version so you won't have to go through a paywall, so you guys can read it all in its entirety. Hopefully it will do this thing. But yeah, the whole deal is, with the Christian Zionists, like Amy Goodman asked, can you talk about the role of Christian Zionists? Katie Baker says, yeah, there are some Christian Zionists who are interested in Israel because they think that it will help bring about Christian dominion worldwide or bring about biblical end times. But there are also a lot of Christians who just see shared Judeo-Christian values and support Israel for that reason. And I think more interestingly, Heritage incorporated a lot of arguments about anti-Semitism into their attacks on higher education, more generally after October 7th. And they blame DEI, Black Lives Matter, and those types of progressive movements for what they see as a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. Here's the thing. These things aren't the source of anti-Semitism, right? You committing a genocide, you committing a 21st century Holocaust is you creating dissent among people for the support for the Zionist state. You did that. It wasn't DEI. It wasn't Black Lives Matter. It wasn't anybody progressive. They did it to themselves. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I hope you guys take a look at that. Also, here is the New York Times article. This is going to be the archived version, so you guys won't have to go through. Jacqueline asked, will this live chat be available to watch on replay? Yes, I try to make sure that it's always available on replay. So you guys have that too. But there is the link for the New York Times article. It's archived, so you guys don't have to go through a paywall. Also, I'll share the archived version with you too, Roger, in your DMs, just so that you have it too, so you won't have to share it through a paywall. There you go. And then this one is from Newsweek, maps showing states where boycotting Israel is illegal, which to me is complete and utter BS. Like, we should be able to boycott if we, because I mean, that's part of free speech, right? We should be able to. But the crazy part is, it's like, oh, well, you can't withhold your funds from something that you deem, bad. Like, no. I'll share this really quick because I want to get this as well. So maps showing states where boycotting Israel is illegal. Let me see. So it says the states that have passed legislation making it illegal for states' agencies to work with companies that boycott Israel include Texas, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Florida, Arizona, Georgia, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arkansas, Minnesota, Nevada, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Kansas, North Carolina, Utah, Missouri, Idaho, West Virginia, Colorado, Mississippi, and New Hampshire. So basically, most of the country. I'm going to tell you this right now. If I have a business and I want to boycott brands from Israel, if I, as a business owner, want to not use their brand, that's my right. That is my right to not deal in a business, transaction with a company that has dealings with Israel. That's my right. And yet you're going to force my hand. Like, let's say I make Venetian blinds, right? Well, the materials that are needed to make Venetian blinds, maybe some of them deal with Israel. Well, then I'm just going to go with a different company. Why are you going to force me to use Israeli companies to make my Venetian blinds? That is complete and utter BS. Roger says Newsweek article punishes companies that don't want to contract with Israel. Yeah, so I'll share that with you guys too. But that's also a free speech issue. If you're a business owner, you should be able to boycott other businesses that you want. Because here's the thing. How many businesses would be punished for boycotting Black businesses? Is there a law for boycotting Black businesses? And business to business transactions, is there a law against boycotting Black businesses? Don't worry, I'll wait. I don't hear of one. So, with that being said, great question, Jacqueline. Says, isn't there a danger that if you are a business owner and you don't boycott Israel goods, then the customers might boycott your store? Bingo! So here's the thing. As a business, you may not be able to boycott, but guess what? That don't stop me as an independent consumer from boycotting your business. Because if you're not allowed to boycott, then guess what? I guess I'm going to have to boycott your business then. But here's the problem. When you live in a capitalist system, it thrives on monopolization. So therefore, some people are forced to use said business because they really don't have anything else to turn to. Like, for instance, a lot of times people will go, well, we just need to boycott Amazon. That's not possible for some people, especially a lot of people who are disabled, because the convenience of being able to order from Amazon it may be convenient for some of us who are able-bodied, but for the disabled, it is more of a kind of a godsend for them. And so it makes it so much more difficult if they have to boycott. So they're not able to as readily as the rest of us. So they make it so that boycotting is going to be extremely harmful to you, especially if you're marginalized in that way. Because now they have a monopoly on that particular, market share. And so that's the problem with capitalism, because capitalism actually gets rid of competition. It doesn't breed competition, it gets rid of it. It eliminates it. And so because of that, it's just sick. It's a sick system. So it forces people to use companies that they normally, wouldn't if they have the choice outside of duress. So yeah. Rondo says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, something, something. Only Jewish state, something, something. Right? Yep. And Wadi says one way to deflect the risk of getting harassed by pro-Israeli types is if you choose not to sell Israeli goods is to blame it on the tariffs and how they disrupted things. Thanks, Trump. Nice. Oh my goodness. Sela says, absolutely, we do not get to choose any of the products we are forced to purchase. Yep. All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to the patrons, and then we shall move on. All right, so let's go to this. Let's thank the people who make this channel possible. So I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. And you guys make this very possible. And here are the tiers. So we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you to all future JB members. Future to all Patreon patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. This makes it a lot more doable and possible. So thank you very much to all of you. And by the way, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the next story. So of course, we already talked about North Gaza hospital that was attacked. That was absolutely horrible. That was going on. But I want to get to one of the primary stories that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan for the people. This is going to be an interesting one. Very interesting. All right, so let's get into it now. John for governor? Ooh-wee. So many of you have probably seen his commercials on TV. You have seen his billboards, and many of you have heard his name throughout the years. His name is John Morgan. John Morgan is a famous attorney, probably one of the largest law firms in the United States. Of the Morgan & Morgan law firm, their phrase that they use every single time is called "for the people." And really, Morgan & Morgan is a law firm that is basically family owned and operated. Of course, you have John Morgan, you have his wife. That's also a lawyer, Morgan & Morgan, his brother. And then their sons are also all lawyers under Morgan & Morgan. Now, for those of you who are old enough, I remember when it was Morgan, Collin, and Gilbert. That's how old I am. Before it was Morgan & Morgan, it was Morgan, Collin, and Gilbert. But anyways, He is extremely famous lawyer. Everybody knows his face. But there is he has political aspirations now. And I always thought to myself, I'm like, wouldn't this guy end up running for governor or something like that? Or senator? And I always thought that he probably would, but it just seemed like he never did. But now for 2026, looks like it's about to happen. So let's take a look at this. This is crazy. Oh my goodness. All right. And I love how this is titled Pot Daddy to Politician. John Morgan eyes 2026 run for Florida governor. Oh my Lord. Let's get into this.
If you haven't heard of John Morgan, do me a favor, get in a car, drive around, because you were bound to run into one of his billboards along the busy roads here in the Sunshine State and beyond. But sounds like he's seriously considering trading those billboards in for smaller signs, yard signs, political ones. He's the founder of one of the largest injury law firms on the planet, a billionaire, and if you haven't seen him along a highway, you probably have on TV.
There's only one Morgan & Morgan for the people.
And Wednesday, John Morgan was in Tallahassee telling reporters he is serious about a 2026 run for governor. What's the percentage? I mean, do you have like a 50-50 right now, or are you leaning one way?
Every day that you wake up, you lean differently. You see stuff that, I mean, look, what happened to a property in this state, and by the way, Danny Perez is right. The insurance companies were lying out their ass. They weren't losing money. They're making billions of dollars. This was a money grab for the governor to run for president. And who lost? Every homeowner in Florida.
Morgan says if he does get in, it would be third party, a party he's actually trying to create from scratch, even launching a cash prize contest Memorial Day weekend to figure out a name. His goal? Increasing affordability and easing income inequality.
And I'm just wondering, how serious we should take your conversations about possibly running for governor.
I think you should take it seriously.
Okay.
Because you get to a point in life where what are you going to do? I can write checks. I will write checks. James Carville told me that a governor can do more good than any other person in the country.
Morgan has.
Okay, so he wants to tackle income inequality. He's not going to be running as a Democrat, and he's not going to be running as a Republican. This is interesting. He's running as an independent or third party. I was not expecting that. But what went over my head was, this was years ago, back in 2017, he left the Democratic Party. And some people would think, well, if he left the Democratic Party, that means he went to Republicans. But he didn't. He is NPA, no party affiliation. I was shooketh. I was gobsmacked. I was taken aback. I was like, what? And by the way, one of the people who spearheaded the ballot initiative to make cannabis for medical use legal in Florida was this guy. He was one of the people who spearheaded that. And it's like, what? So, and one of the things he spoke about was how the insurance companies are making, money hand over fist, which is true. And now that people need the insurance companies to be able to fill their end of the bargain by helping them out, the insurance companies want to pull out and leave, right? They made all their billions here. And the next thing you know, as soon as things get a little tight, and now the people actually need their insurance to be able to, fix their home due to flooding and wind damage from these storms and all these different things. Now, these insurance companies want to, skip town and run away with the millions of dollars that you and everybody else put in. And so he's talking about income inequality, but I always look at people with a side eye who have as much money as him, and they talk about income inequality. John Morgan is a billionaire. Do I trust him? No, no. I don't trust him one iota. But of course, he is, running as an independent. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Also, by the way, taking advice from James Carville, that guy, not a good look. Anyways, let's continue.
Shown he knows how to win elections. He helped bankroll successful Florida ballot initiatives like increasing the minimum wage and the medical marijuana law. The 69-year-old was a Democrat through 2017, but became disillusioned and left the party while teasing a previous run for governor ahead of 2018. Morgan is now a regular critic of the guy who won that race, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Well, thanks so much.
Speaking of, he and his wife Casey DeSantis were asked about her political ambitions in Brandon. The First Lady didn't say no to a run, instead insisting it's too early.
I get why this is a big conversation, but I will also say it's more than a year away from qualifying. I mean, I think we need to be thinking about what the people put people into office to do, to try to make sure that they're delivering on the promises that they told the people they were going to do when they first got elected.
Other names in the
Okay, so DeSantis gets on my damn nerves. Either shit in the pot or get off. My God, look, the election's in 2026. We're now at mid 2025. You're running. If you're going to start running for Florida governor, you better get your ass in gear right now. So why are you all this? Oh, I don't know. If you had a shot, take it. Blah blah blah. She quoted Yogi Bear in the original question. Like, come on. Do we really look like Boo Boo the Fool to you, Casey? Mrs. DeSantis, do we look like dumb? Do we look like we're dumb? God, I cannot stand it when people do this. Well, maybe I am and maybe I'm not. I don't know. Maybe we'll just leave it up to the stars. Who knows? Stop it. Stop it. Yes or no. Are you running? That's it. But of course, she learns from the best, her husband, who is good at diverting away from the questions. Anyway, that's one thing I will give to John Morgan. He's like, are you considering a run for governor? Should we take it seriously? He's like, you should take it very seriously. He's like, yeah, take me serious. Okay, fine. We get that. But don't do all this cutesy, maybe I am, maybe I won't. Who knows? Maybe I'll run for. Oh gosh, she annoys me with that. Anyways, let's continue on. They're talking about other people who are trying to enter into the race. Let's go.
Other names in the mix: State Senator Jason Pizzo. He was a Dem who recently flipped independent, telling CBS Miami he's in. Former GOP Congressman David Jolly, now a Democrat, mulling a run. And current GOP Congressman Byron Donalds, with the president's endorsement and some kind words for DeSantis.
And I do give the governor credit. It looks, as things stand in Florida today, his vision of the future of the state won. And it looks like those culture wars have pretty much come to an end. And so really now it's about, vigilance on some of those core cultural and philosophical issues, but of now a focus on the economic future of the state.
So when will Morgan make a decision on whether or not to run? Well, he says by September of 2026. He would prefer, he says, a sprint rather than a marathon. We'll have to see what happens. That's the latest out here at the state capitol. I'm Forrest Saunders reporting.
So that's what's going on. What do you guys think? Do you think that John Morgan has a shot? Number one, he's a billionaire, right? Okay. Number two, he would be no party affiliation, or he'll come up with a third party. Number three, he says he's focused on income inequality, right? I still see him as a Democrat with an I next to his name. That's what I see. I see a Democrat with an I next to his name. He will be no more independent in my eyes than a Bernie Sanders. Maybe to the right of Bernie. That's what I see. But do you think that John Morgan actually has a shot in Florida? Because here's the thing. John Morgan has huge name recognition. Like everybody, like, look, y'all, most of y'all aren't even in Florida. Y'all know who John Morgan is. More people, I hate to say this, but more people know who John Morgan is than they know who Jill Stein was. Because you see his face every day. If you watch regular TV, you'll see his face. If you're driving down the road, you'll see his face. Look, we have his face plastered on the side of our buses here in Orlando. The Morgan & Morgan law firm is downtown. Back in the day, when my grandmother was still alive, she knew about John Morgan. And she lives in New Jersey. But the question is about the policy, right? Because I don't think the problem is that a lot of times people will vote a lot of times on personality and cult of personality, and then policy comes second. When in reality, policy should be first and only, to be honest with you. Or first, way far ahead, and then everything else is like way behind. But policy should be the main thing. So my question is, what would be his policies in the state of Florida? For instance, what is his policy on healthcare? Would he try to make a Florida Medicaid for all, or a Medicare for, or a single payer healthcare system in Florida? Because as many seniors as we have in this state, oh baby, you know what I mean? Now, the seniors, they have Medicare, but Medicare only covers 80%, right? It only covers 80% of the cost, and it's not comprehensive. So, it doesn't cover dental, it doesn't cover vision, it doesn't cover long-term care, things like that. So, of course, you would have to come up with a single-payer healthcare system within the state of Florida. All right, would he be down for that? What would be amazing is if I can actually get him on. I don't know if I'll be able to, though. But that's the question. Now, when it comes to recreational marijuana, I know where he stands. He is for recreational marijuana to be legalized. I know where he stands on that. Of course, you got to get into the nuts and bolts as far as things like abortion and stuff like that, which is, primarily a health issue, but it's also a bit of a social issue too. I don't want to get too much in the weeds in that. When it comes to corruption and taking the money out of politics, how would he tackle that in Florida? How would he tackle getting the money out of politics in Florida elections? How would he tackle the influence of Big Sugar? How would he tackle the influence of real estate developers? How would he tackle housing in this state? These are some of the questions that I have, because we have a population explosion here in Central Florida. Everybody and their mama's moving down here, and it's making things extremely expensive for the rest of us. And so, according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, their out of reach program, Florida right now is the 10th most expensive state in the United States. And in a couple of months, they should be coming up with their 2025 out of reach projections, or not projections, but they're gauging for, the entire country. So my question would be, for somebody like a John Morgan, how would he tackle that? How would he tackle rent stabilization and rent control? Because rent control is actually considered illegal here in Florida. You cannot do rent control here. How would he tackle that? Right? What about the Florida Department of Education? Right? How would he tackle that, especially when it comes to our public colleges? You have UCF, FSU, FAMU. You have all these different Florida universities that are public colleges. The question would be, how are you going to lessen the cost burden on people who are going to school? How would you lessen the cost burden on people who are going to vocational school within this state? Because that's another thing, right? Because vocational schools are going to be seeing, I'm predicting vocational schools are going to see a huge influx of more people, because college debt is very unpopular. And then the environment, because climate change affects us in a very heavy way. How would he tackle that? Because, hurricane season is in 10 days. Hurricane season starts. How would he tackle that? So these are some of the questions that I have for somebody like John Morgan. And also, by the way, we won't know if he's running for governor until September of 2026. Are you out of your damn mind? Like I said about Casey DeSantis, if you're going to be running for Florida governor, you better start now. And it's not like John Morgan ain't got the money. He got the money. He got it. So why aren't you starting now? Start now. Lay in on the attacks on Byron Donalds. Lay in, because we all know that he's running for Florida governor, right? Lay in your attacks on him. Don't pay no attention to Casey DeSantis until she officially starts to run. Then when she starts to run, then you go after her. Go after her and her husband for the corruption that they've had, right? And then also, do not be afraid to lay in on the Democrat too, right? Let them know that they're nowhere near strong enough to be able to compete, to actually fight for the working class people in this state. That's one of the things I think that, John Morgan should be doing. Like, if I was John Morgan, I would have announced this week. I would start at least 18 months before the election. Because ain't no way you're running in Florida. This ain't Rhode Island. This ain't Wyoming. This ain't Nebraska. This is Florida, baby. That's my thing. I want to share this too, because somebody like John Morgan, he was talking about this was a little bit earlier on. Hang on, let me share this. I just want to share this because he said the party that he's trying to start, a third party, it gave me pause, So let's go here.
John Morgan, for the people of Florida, the founder of the largest personal injury firm in the world and an Orlando native, is not ruling out a run for governor. Good evening. I'm John Brown.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Luann Sorrell. But if he did it, he says he's not going to run as a Republican or a Democrat. Fox 35's Matt Trezza is joining us live tonight. So, Matt, the biggest surprise here is who Morgan would pick as his running mate.
Okay, I want y'all to prepare for this, because this is another reason why I give John Morgan the major side eye. Even though he's running independent, I'm like, yeah, you're a Democrat with an I next to your name. Listen to this.
Yeah, well, that person would be Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, Morgan says, and he revealed a lot more in an interview. Reportedly, he says Florida needs a new major political party as well, and he outlined some of his objectives were he to take the state's top job. John Morgan is no stranger to Florida politics. He's already backed constitutional amendments on marijuana and the minimum wage. Now, according to a Politico report, Morgan is ready to launch a new political force in Florida, the Capitalist Party. He's
Let's just go over that again. Let's just reverse it. Reverse it. Now y'all know me. Now you see why I'm looking at this dude with a side eye. Independent. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are already capitalist parties. So why are you trying to make another capitalist party? Here's the thing that I want people to be aware of. Be aware of anybody that's running a third party that really is just a Democrat or Republican party with an independent veneer. Be careful, because those parties are going to start popping up because they realize that the wind is blowing in a different direction. People are sick and tired of both parties. So guess what? Don't be surprised if you have somebody running as an independent, but yet they're still aligned with the Democrat and Republican parties. Don't be surprised. This is why I say, look at the policies and then judge for yourself then. Don't be like, oh my God, it's John Morgan. He's cool. No. The policies are what will tell you everything you need to know. And so this is why I'm looking at this man on the side eye. And on top of that, he wants his running mate to be a cop. Baby, John Morgan, this ain't it, bro.
He's been registered as a no-party affiliated voter for years now. He's quoted in the story stating, "What I learned from those two things was that when you take the D and the R down, most of us agree on most things, and I find that very encouraging." UCF political science professor Aubrey Jewett says Morgan may have a real shot if he runs for the state's top job.
Most third-party candidates or independents don't really get off the ground politically, in a competitive race. Because he's so well known in Florida, because he has so much money, and because he has this reputation of being very plain spoken and for the people, I think he'd be pretty formidable.
The article states that as governor, Morgan would likely turn the governor's mansion into a museum. He'd also host events like weekly cash giveaways to charities in the state. While staunchly pro-marijuana, both medicinally and recreationally, Morgan says he'd like to have Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd as a running mate.
He is a great entrepreneur and lawyer and runs the biggest and greatest law firm in the entire United States. And I love being the sheriff of Polk County.
Judd, who's strongly against any kind of legalized pot, says he's honored to be considered, but wants to stay in his current job.
And certainly.
So this is why it's important to look at the policies and who a candidate surrounds themselves with. Because ultimately, like, Grady Judd would be a heartbeat away from the governor's mansion. Now, thankfully, somebody like Grady Judd said, nah, I wouldn't do it. But John Morgan was tapping him for it.
We're diametrically opposed because I don't believe in recreational marijuana and he does. But I can assure you that we agree on many, many, many more things than we disagree upon. And I think what his statement is in this caustic political relationship that we see at the state and national level, we need more common sense and center thinking, which I believe we both represent for the most part.
Okay, so the whole center thinking, right? What happens when the center is on the right? You know what I mean? The thing is like you're trying to do like centrist. It sounds like, you know, they're radical centrism. No, we're not going to go too far to the left. We're not going to go too far to the right. We're going to stay right here. Maybe a little tweaks here and there, but that's it. What are you doing that's really drastically different that will actually materially help the working people of Florida? What is actually going to change for the working and poor people of this state? 10th most expensive state in the United States. You need to make over $35,000 an hour just to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in the state. Orlando, the Orlando I-4 corridor area is exploding with people. People from Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts. We got people coming from New York. You know what one of the sayings is? They say Florida is a northern state in the South. Especially when you are below, I say, right below Gainesville. Oh, you're not in the South anymore. That's how many Northerners we have. Look, I'm from New Jersey. So that's the thing. Like, how many people are moving to the state and then causing our housing prices to go up, causing our cost of living to go up? We need something drastic. And the problem is, you got people like this that are like, well, we just need to stay in the center. We got to stay in the middle. How's that worked out for us? Grady Judd. Anyway.
Now, we've been in touch with Morgan's office, but they didn't get a response to us by airtime. Morgan has donated to Democrats in the past. Live in Dr. Phillips, Matt Trezza, Fox 35 News.
Very interesting, Matt. Thank you. Well,
so that's one of the things that gave me pause about somebody like a John Morgan. And so, of course, he's going to be influenced by the fact that he's a billionaire. Well, the system worked for me, so I'm gonna keep the same system in place, when it doesn't work for most people. And so this is why I tell people to focus on the policies. Focus on the policy And if he's not willing to put his policy platform up there on, early on, he ain't it, folks. And neither is the other people who are running. Because ultimately, John Morgan, is really, he's the biggest name, but he is not going to be the one that actually brings about real change in the state. So they're talking about Jason Pizzo or John Morgan. They're talking about, and this is the problem with outlets like Orlando Sentinel. Orlando Sentinel is talking about how if they run third party, it'll siphon votes away from the Democrats. And that's another thing. Like, of course, the Democratic Party is going to be against him running, because here's the issue. John Morgan is very wealthy and he's very popular. Everybody knows him. And so the problem is that the Florida Democrats are going to be like, oh my God, if he runs, he's going to siphon votes away from us. My thing is to the Florida Democrats, I'm going to tell you this. If you're afraid of John Morgan siphoning votes away from you, that means that you suck as a party. That's your problem. You suck. Because ain't no way a billionaire is going to outdo me if I have the right policies for working class people. Ain't no way a billionaire is going to outdo me. Right? Especially if you have the institutional power of the Democratic Party. You guys have billions of dollars also in your coffers. But you're afraid of John Morgan? Baby, come on now. You guys suck that much. Y'all lost to Ron DeSantis. You guys lost to Ron DeSantis? The JD lawyer? I'm sorry, the JD military JD that helped oversee torture in Guantanamo Bay? You lost to him? Yeah, y'all suck. And so if you were to take on left populist policies like a single payer state, healthcare system, like making it so that, you can make it more affordable to live in this state. Hell, why aren't we talking about reparations for American descendants of slavery or American freedmen here in the state of Florida? Why aren't we talking about reparations? Oh, because you guys don't want to actually do it. The Democrats should be the first ones in line, because if they consider themselves to be allies with Black people, why aren't you guys doing a reparations bill? Why aren't you guys pushing for reparations in the state house, in the state house and the state senate? Why aren't you guys even trying? Because you're ineffective. Because you don't put forth policies that actually help the working people in Florida. And y'all won't dare come to the hoods, especially not in Orlando. Y'all won't dare come here. Y'all put your yard signs out there, but you won't dare come into our neighborhoods and knock on our doors. So what do you expect? And by the way, Orange County and Orlando are both Democrat-run cities, Democrat-run city in the county. And there's a huge mass of people here that vote Democrat. And yet, can't get it. So this is the issue with, people like Pizzo and John Morgan. Of course, they talk about a spoiler, how they feel he would be a spoiler, which, of course, it just shows how terrible they are, the Florida Democrats. So much so that Florida actually has a super majority of Republicans in this state. Like, Republicans run the entire state. Um, And here it says Republicans are using the Morgan and Pizzo moves to highlight state Democrats' political difficulties. And with Morgan planning the contest to come up with a name for his new party, the Republicans offered up some of their own suggestions, such as United Ambulance Chasers Party, to reflect Morgan's occupation, and launched his own online forum for people to submit ideas. Power said later via text that Morgan and Pizzo's requests are doomed and show the Democratic Party is incapable of winning elections. Their idea of third-party runs are just further proof that the Florida Democratic Party is dead. Both Pizzo and Morgan are radical liberals. Just slapping a new label on themselves won't fix their flawed views. A third-party candidate has zero chance of winning, just as Charlie Crist. So Charlie Crist is a interesting example because Charlie Crist was actually a Republican. And then he switched party affiliations in order to be able to run, just so that he can continue to stay at the job, become a senator. And so Charlie Crist, like, has he really changed in his views? I highly doubt it. So yeah, what do you guys think about John Morgan becoming the governor of Florida, potentially becoming the governor of Florida? I'm sick and tired of billionaires trying to get into high office. I don't like it. And I find that these billionaires feel like, well, they're the smartest people in the room, or they're the most qualified people in the room, when they're not. Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean that you're the smartest person or the most qualified. By the way, we already have a lawyer running the state. His name is Ron DeSantis. So now we're going to have a billionaire lawyer running the state. Okay. So yeah, I just see John Morgan as another Democrat. It's just, he just doesn't have the D next to his name. But let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think? John Morgan? Governor Morgan? Not for me. But the question is he really for the people? That remains to be seen. All right, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. Whew, that was a story that I was just like, what? John Morgan? Wow. And also, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Jaybefaunt deliciousness. So thank you very much for that. Let's get into the comments in the chat. Actually, you know what? Let me check the Rumble side to see if I have any Rumble rants. I doubt it, though. No, we're good on the Rumble side. Just checking. All right, so let's go into the rest of the chat. All right. Let me see. Man, you guys were talking. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me see. Whatever man said, if John Morgan is for the people, then how did he get so rich? Oh my goodness. Roger says Morgan. Now, if that ain't the name of a law firm, then I don't know what is, right? Oh, whatever man says. I remember when it was Morgan, Colin, and Gilbert too. Yeah, yup. This was, yeah. It's interesting because, okay, so this is the only one cool thing about Morgan and Morgan is his wife's name. If you're a gamer, you're gonna actually appreciate this. John Morgan's wife's name is Ultima. Swear to God, his wife's name is Ultima Morgan. I was just like, when she said her name is Ultima, I'm like the weapon in Final Fantasy VII? like the Ultima weapon that Cloud has? What? That's the only cool thing, is that her name is actually Ultima. Anyways. Yes, in Florida. Jacqueline says, never heard of Morgan. Yeah, that's because you're in the UK. But yeah, everybody here in the United States, we know who John Morgan is. Okay, Jay says billionaire. Yeah, a billionaire. That's how rich he is. John Morgan's money is long. GP says he's a huge here in Florida, super 420 friendly. Yep, definitely. He is. And one of the arguments he made for the medical marijuana legalization was that his brother is disabled. His brother is also in a wheelchair, and he felt that it was necessary, to help his brother. His brother's also a lawyer, but his brother is wheelchair bound, and he wants to, wanted it to at least be legalized from, medicinally for people like his brother, which I respect that. John Morgan be getting down, on the bong. He just, I can just see him hitting the bong, man. My goodness. I can see him going, oh yeah, Ultima, we want to put some steaks on the grill there. All right. Put some steaks on the grill. Give me a couple beers too. Why don't you? By the way, he also it has been disbarred because he's been disbarred because he has some DUIs in the past, and so he actually doesn't have his license to practice law anymore. Anyway, that's some of the inside information. Rondo says, yeah, the yellow and black logo. Yeah, I've seen that joint. Yep, black and yellow. Yeah, exactly. Platform. It's like he doesn't have a platform yet. And yes, Eric talks about the 11 demands. I honestly don't see him embracing a huge part of the 11 demands. I could be wrong, but I don't see it happening. Yeah, he said that's why he's the pot daddy. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever man says, Florida has a big MPA slice, no party affiliation. Yeah. We have a lot of independents here in Florida because a lot of people really just don't like either party. And now that article that I was reading, they're saying, somebody was saying how just because there are people who say they're no party affiliate, he said they're basically saying that they don't really mean to be no party affiliate. They don't want to be labeled, but they're still Democrats or Republicans at heart. My thing is that people see through the BS. And, I'm an independent, here in Florida as well, no party affiliation. And so it's that I see no effectiveness from either party to really make things better for us. So, like, I'm sure a lot of other Floridians feel the same exact way as I do. So it's not that we're Democrats and Republicans at heart. It's that both parties suck. They're that bad. Sela says, how much power is enough for these billionaires? Are we going to believe this individual is going to look out for the poor or working class? I don't know, JB. Show me the platform and method. Yeah. So as far as John Morgan's platform, because he's not officially running, there's nothing there. So there is no official platform. Like if you look for his platform, like it's kind of hard to find because he doesn't have a website yet. To be honest with you, I wouldn't imagine that it's that much different than the Democratic Party. And my thing is, like, if it's going to appear just like the Democratic Party, then you're not really different. Right? So, yeah. Let me see. Jay says he's going to sell us out for $500,000. He got $500,000, Jacqueline says, is there a Joey Vega or Shama Sawant equivalent in Florida? I'm pretty sure that there is. It's just they're not well known. Let me see. Mouse says, so sick of wannabe political dynasties. This isn't a monarchy. Yeah. Well, technically, we do kind of live in a monarchy but it's just the corporate overlords are the royalties. They're the royals, essentially. Yeah, as far as John Morgan's platform, there really isn't a platform yet because he's not officially running. He's playing with the idea, or he's saying that he wants to, but he's not. He hasn't officially announced yet. So, yeah. Whatever man says, KC has to check if her hidden funds will be available in a year. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Yeah, I agree, Eric. He said Morgan could win, but he's not going to fix the corruption. I don't think so. Sela says he's on Spanish language radio throughout the United States. He absolutely is. Jay says, JB, I feel another question is, can he be effectively co-opted by leftists? And anything short of him becoming a class traitor? No. That's the only way, is if he becomes a class traitor and betrays the billionaire class and actually starts going leftist policies. But the fact that he wanted to name his party the Capitalist Party tells me no, he wouldn't. Yeah, whatever man says, that's why he wants a sprint, JB. Morgan doesn't want to address the issues. yeah, it's like, if you really want to address the issues, you would start right now and let people vet you for governor. But he's not. And so, of course, he's going to announce in September. So if he announces September 2026, September, October, November, he only has 2 months, which means that you're not going to have enough time to read his policy platform. You're not going to have enough time to get him for an interview, to hold his feet to the fire. You're not going to have any time to do any of that. So it's just going to be, hey, I'm running. All right, pick me, choose me, bubble my name in. All right, see you guys in November. And then if he wins, he wins. If he loses, then, whatever. This is a great question. Eric says, would Morgan tax the billionaires to pay for healthcare? I think he should, but he won't. Because he's not going to betray his class. I highly doubt he would. Kat says, I feel like this is an op. You too, huh? Wadi says, are lawyers in the UK not allowed to advertise on things like buses or TV, or it's just not the custom? That's actually a good question. Right? Cat, good on 420, but running with the sheriff? Like, what the hell? What part of opposition do you not understand, John? Roger said I just got triggered. Welcome to Florida. Guys. I don't know why anybody takes this into Florida seriously. No wonder why everybody would clown on Florida every single time. Oh my God. Sheila says, wow, I didn't even know this reporting actually existed. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, he must have did something to be giving cash giveaways. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh my goodness. Oh, you guys are hilarious. I love y'all. Oh my goodness. Let me see if there's anybody who I haven't got to. Okay. Senate Girl says he's the weed guy, right? Yeah, he's the plug for Florida, you know. Oh my goodness. Kenneth Ellison said, wow. Yeah, wow is right. Let me see. And then Roger says, JB, I got 3 double Whoppers with cheese and bacon for you in the DMs. But I'm trying to lose weight, Roger. Why are you trying to push, some bacon Whoppers on me? You know I'm trying to be healthy. What would Sabby say? Sabby would shame you. Let me see. All right, so hang on, let me finish this up and then I'll get you your DM, Roger. Yep. Sabby would say, don't eat that, right? Don't eat the double Whoppers, JB. Leave them alone, JB. Have a smoothie, JB. That's what she would say. All right. So this is World Population Review, income equality by state in 2025. Oh yeah, Florida is high on that list. Mm-mm-mm. Oh my goodness. Mm-mm-mm. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let me share this into the chat. Oh my gosh. All right, so the top 10 states in the income inequality. Whew, boy. So, uh-oh. Okay. It says District of Columbia, New York, Connecticut, Louisiana, Florida, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, West Virginia, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia. And then after Georgia's Illinois. Wow. Yeah. Yep. And yeah, DC would be, you know, the worst. Because a lot of people who are rich live in DC. Roger says, James, this is actually good news because when people are independent, it forces voters to better scrutinize because you can't put them in a partisan box. So now there's a big question mark on the candidate. So now they have to find out further about them. Hopefully it'll be on the policy and not the personality. Now, that is if he's going to stay independent. Now that he's saying the Capitalist Party, well, that's a different story. Yep. What's the, oh, this is
Agreed 1000%. Roger Meadows, thank you for the $5. It's been a while, brother. Haven't seen you. Hope you're doing well. Speaker Johnson, CD4 in Louisiana medium income is 51K. Put on loop, send to district. You three should seriously get together and run a FLCBI for M4A, Medicare for All, public bank and tax reform. That's interesting. Well,
Florida ballot initiative.
Well, yes, but I definitely agree. Single payer is what we should put on the ballot here in Florida. Just
you know where you don't say that because if Steve's watching, he'll have a conniption.
Sure.
Yeah, I was on with them last night. Yeah. And then Florida tax ballot. I think I shared that before. Let me know if I can share that again. Continue, says, it looked like they were both open to running these initiatives. I think you got something there. Our friend Brandy Weaver of Arkansas gave me an idea yesterday when she said she makes a living through Uber Eats, Grubhubs, Instacarts, DoorDashes, or whatever. This right here is how you get signatures. When you show up with food, don't just set it on the step and take a picture. Ring the doorbell and leave. No, hand the food over to the customer with an initiative to sign as well. Of course, you're going to explain what the initiative is about. Here's the issue, though, with that, Roger. The problem is that if you're doing that, it may turn the person off and they may end up giving that person low stars or a low review, which will affect their ability to be able to deliver food. That's the only thing. You know what I mean? So they're taking a big risk because some people may be like, oh, well, this person was, also trying to get me to sign for this ballot initiative, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, they complain either to any one of these websites too. So they can lose their ability to be able to deliver. That's the only thing. I don't agree with it, but I'm just, I'm looking, kind of in a hindsight type of way, But yeah. He says, now, James, before you go run anything as a ballot measure, including a public bank, you must fix the tax code to make it lean toward the worker-friendly public interest economy. First, what I suggest is there is a heavy burden on reversing the tax code. Therefore, I seriously think that you three should get together. They're in one part of Florida, you're another. Find some more people in Florida, have a Zoom meeting where you come together and run the Change the Tax Code initiative that I have just sent you. You see 60% is what's needed to ratify regular amendments, but for those that deal in raising existing or creating new taxes, it takes 66%. Therefore, I think what I have laid out for you here in this initiative will do the trick. If you have time, please read this to the viewers and ask them if this would actually break the 66% threshold in Florida. More importantly, share this with Jen and Peter. Let's get this popping. He said, I had it wrong. I thought this guy was coming on your show since he is so concerned about closing the income wealth inequality gap. Then introduced to him that worker co-ops are the only way to close the income inequality gap. Asked him, no, give him a plan on how you all should build out the cooperative economy. If you need help, I know I already got that. I send you the worker cooperative proliferation plans. Now, if I lived in the ballot initiative state, I probably would never even pay attention to politicians nor ever vote for them again. Maybe I would, I don't know. At that point, we the people already have the power. However, at the end of the day, you are a no tax state, and all those things that you want in Florida, single payer healthcare and state public bank and other things in Florida government is hampered from doing. This now causes your local taxes to skyrocket, as well as fines, fees, and other things. Here's the thing. When you were on Jen Perlman yesterday, you had left before they read the comments because it was meant for you too. But when she read my comment, which was, okay. Not sure if he's finishing that, but yeah, you showed me that already. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, so I wonder, do I have anybody commenting on Kick? Except for me. Yeah, that's it. All right, so let's go into, we're about to go into the final one. It's the final countdown. Let's see. All right, so let's get into the final story. All right, so we talked about North Gaza hospital that was attacked. Talked about that. Then we also talked about John Morgan running for Florida governor, which is a crazy story in itself, but we got through that. Now we're going to be talking about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom versus the homeless. And I'm going to be honest with you, Gavin Newsom is sounding a lot like Ron DeSantis to me. Newsom versus the homeless. I wish my skin was that clear. My goodness, I did a good job on that. Anyways, let's get into this right now. When it comes to the homeless, I really don't see much daylight between Democrats and Republicans, especially now, right? I don't really see it. And so, unfortunately, it's non-existent, right? Because of course, when you're, bankrolled by the rich, the wealthy, the well-connected, of course, you're going to do their bidding instead of the bidding of the people. So I want to get into this about Gavin Newsom, because Gavin Newsom, yeah. This guy is just the worst. and it reminds me of Ron DeSantis. So let's share this. California Governor Gavin Newsom demands cities force homeless people to move every 72 hours. First of all, let me tell you something. Do you know how stressful it is to have to move? And to have to move every 72 hours? They really do hate the poor and working poor. They really do. Let's get into it. All right. So it says on May 12th, California Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, demanded that cities throughout the state adopt anti-camping ordinances that would effectively ban public homelessness by requiring unhoused individuals to relocate every 72 hours. While presented as a humanitarian effort to reduce homelessness, the new policy victimizes California's growing unhoused population, approximately 187,000 people, by tying funding to Proposition 1 to local laws banning sleeping or camping on public land. In his announcement, Newsom pushed local governments to adopt the draconian ordinances without delay. Quote, "We want to see this model ordinance across the state of California." While the announcement does not explicitly compel local governments to comply, Newsom hinted that those failing to adopt the ordinance could face withholding of state funds. The attacks are a continuation of the long-standing assault on California's vulnerable homeless population. In July of 2024, Newsom ordered state officials to dismantle homeless encampments across California, directly citing the Supreme Court's June 2024 decision in Grants Pass versus Johnson, which ruled that the city of Grants Pass, Oregon, did not violate the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment by banning homeless encampments, even for those with nowhere else to go. While Proposition 1 allocates $3.3 billion for mental health and addiction treatment services, the infrastructure for these programs does not yet exist. Yet the sweeps are already underway. At the same time, the state's proposed budget includes cuts to the homeless housing assistance and prevention program. Last year, Paul Simmons, executive director for Californians Against Prop 1, stated it's all in preparation of hiding the homeless instead of helping them. It will still be a bridge to nowhere, pushing people into a system that can't even handle what we have now. Since the latest attack, however, is a qualitatively different character. While previous sweeps generally focus on displacement rather than arrest or institutionalization, there are now increasing calls at all levels of government for the outright removal of undesirable elements. So this is basically, there's not much of a gulf between a Gavin Newsom and a Ron DeSantis. And so for the people who say, well, the Democrats are better on this, no, they're not. Gavin Newsom certainly isn't. And instead of actually truly providing housing for the people who are homeless and unhoused, he is basically just wanting to shuffle them around so they're out of sight, out of mind. And so a lot of times people will go, well, why don't they just use the services that they have? Well, we're going to get into that in a second and show you why these services are inadequate. So let's continue. Says, in addition to the dire lack of shelters and services accessible to those in need, existing shelters often impose extremely restrictive conditions, barring pets, requiring separation from partners or family members, and in many cases being plagued by well-documented instances of abuse and violence. So it's not just that, but that's part and parcel of it. But also some of these shelters, especially the ones that have religious backing, they will force you to adhere to like going to like their Bible studies or their classes for Bible class and things like that in order to have housing? And what if you're already in a different religious denomination, or what if you're in a completely different religion? What if you're Muslim, but then this Christian organization is like, well, you have to study the Bible with us, and you have to sit with us, and you have to pray to our God and things like that, right? Or what if you're somebody that's atheist, but you now have to, in order to have housing, you have to essentially, wave away your principles and go, with whatever they choose religiously. Or if you have a family member that you want to stick close to, you can't, because there's some shelters where it's like women and children only, no men. So therefore, if you have a husband, well, he has to go with the men. Or if you have a son that is considered to be too old, he can't be with you and the rest of your family. He has to go be with the men, even if he may have to be alone. There are also times where people have experienced sexual assault while in these shelters. People will steal from other people in these shelters. Things are not secure. On top of it, a lot of times people talk about, well, mental health. Well, if mental illness is an issue, then why aren't we making sure that they have housing so that it alleviates some of the issues regarding mental health? Why do they have to heal from their mental health while being homeless? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Put them in homes so that it helps their mental health improve instead first? Or then they'll talk about people who are, have substance abuse. A lot of the people who are homeless who do have substance abuse, they abuse substances because they're homeless, because they weren't abusing substances before they were homeless. It happened after they became homeless. And even if it did happen before they became homeless, right? You know how many people abuse substances who got money? Hey, are you going to say the same thing to Emmanuel Macron and his buddies when they were on that flight? Oh, well, you guys can't have housing until you guys get yourself clean. Because everybody saw that Emmanuel Macron was hiding some of that twinkle twinkle. Yet nobody's talking about, oh, well, he shouldn't have housing. I can't tell you how many people who are in corporate America that partake in some nose candy. And yet people don't go to them and question them about their being able to have housing. Because they already got the money. Why is it that we have to put barriers, to housing based on whether or not they're, abusing substances? You know how many people are addicted to sugar? Are we going to start, not allowing people to have housing if they have an addiction to sugar? It's a health issue. We got to stop treating these health issues as moral issues. Anywho. With nowhere else to go, no help, and the threat of state-sponsored violence and incarceration, these measures effectively criminalize poverty. They do nothing to address the root causes of the homelessness crisis, a national and global phenomenon driven by soaring living costs, the dismantling of public health and social services to fund police militarization and war, and broader attacks on democratic rights. These are the inevitable consequences of an economic system that prioritizes profit over human need, capitalism. Newsom's declaration of a budget shortfall and the accompanying cuts to social services are part of sweeping attacks on the lives and livelihoods of workers across the country as the ruling class defends the extreme concentration of wealth. This is from David North on the 2025 May Day rally. Says in absolute terms, even when adjusted for inflation, the personal wealth of multi-billionaire oligarchs surpasses that of the robber barons of the late 19th and earlier 20th centuries. The scale of wealth concentrated in an infinitesimal section of the population all but defies comprehension. A recently published analysis of wealth distribution in the United States reported that in 2024 alone, $1 trillion in additional wealth was generated for the 19 richest American households. This is 0.00001% of the population. 1 in 10 million accounts for almost 2% of total U.S. household wealth. The process of social polarization is growing like a malignant tumor. In 2021, there were 1,370 billionaires. By the end of 2024, the number had risen to 1,990, an increase of 45%. The richest 1% owns 31% of the wealth of the United States. Collectively, the wealthiest 10% owns 67% of the nation's wealth. By way of comparison, the bottom 50% own just 3%. So, you know, it's ridiculous, right? Talks about how also, these many people who are unhoused. A lot of times people don't talk about the people who are living in their cars or who couch surf, right? People who live in, on people's couches, or people who live in the motels, right? You have people who live there. They're still considered homeless because they're living there out of duress, not because they can actually afford it. And then you got some of these people who they probably have to live in a motel, even though they probably could afford the rent, but they can't because, well, their credit isn't good enough. They can't pass a credit score. They can't pass a credit check. And so then they're forced to live in those type of conditions as well. And so, it's people like, Gavin Newsom that are also making it so that it's harder on these people. So it's just, it's also, wages don't keep up with the cost of inflation. And of course, California is literally the #1 state that's the most expensive state to live in, according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition. You have to make about, I think somewhere north of $45 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And that's unconscionable. That's unsustainable. And people start talking about, oh, well, they make $15 an hour minimum wage. That ain't jack squat. That's nothing. When you need to make, 3-4 times that amount in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, that's crazy. So when it comes to, what people like Gavin Newsom are doing, this is why I say what he's doing is very similar to what people like Ron DeSantis is doing. I see really no difference between them. Let's take a look at this. So this is out of Daytona Beach. It says, what's Florida's homeless law? How new rules will impact homeless population. This came out last year. It says Florida homeless are now banned from camping or sleeping on public property under a new law signed by Governor Ron DeSantis back in March. Who does this sound like? It sounds like Gavin Newsom. It says the new statute took effect on Tuesday, October 2nd, with the Associated Press sharing it as one of the strictest anti-homeless measures in the nation. Florida would not allow homeless encampments to intrude on its citizens or undermine their quality of life like we see in states like New York and California. Well, apparently, that's BS because California is doing the same thing. How is it any different? So here's Ron DeSantis playing partisan politics, when in reality, Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom are just as cruel as one or the other. They don't really give a damn about people who are unhoused. They don't give a damn about people having upward mobility in this state. They don't. So really, what's the difference between them? There's no difference. And I'm sick and tired of people thinking, oh, well, the Democrats are better than Republicans. No, they're not. You can see it right here. Supporters say it is compassionate conservatism and puts efforts where they're needed. Critics say it creates forced internment camps with the goal of getting unhoused people out of sight. Here's what to know. So, like, guess what? Just like in California, out of sight, out of mind, right? It says under HB 1365, as stated, homeless individuals are prohibited from camping on city streets, sidewalks, and parks, and instead placed in temporary shelters monitored by law enforcement agencies. The state of Florida has the enforcement tools needed to ensure local governments comply. So the state of Florida has the enforcement tools needed to ensure that local governments comply. What did we see that Gavin Newsom is doing? He's withholding funds from local municipalities if they do not comply. It's the same thing that Ron DeSantis is doing. I want you guys to see how Ron DeSantis and Gavin Newsom are basically two sides of the same decrepit, disgusting, rusty coin. They are both exactly the same, right? No different. It says if a county designates public property to be used for public camping or sleeping, the county must establish and maintain minimum standards and procedures related to ensuring safety, security, sanitation, mental health, and substance abuse services coordination. Homeless shelters will require occupants to not use drugs. Does this include Tylenol? Advil? Does this include insulin? What does that include? What are you talking about? All right. So authorizes a resident of the county, owner of a business located in the county, or the attorney general to bring civil action to enjoin the county or municipality from authorizing public camping or sleeping without designating property for that use. It says the bill will also provide what is known as wraparound services, including mental health care for the state's homeless population. According to DeSantis, during the bill's signing, the governor said that the bill will help maintain and ensure Florida streets are clean and that Florida streets are safe for our residents. Hey, let me ask you this: why instead? Look, it's a very easy solution. If you want to get rid of homelessness, house the people, and don't have barriers to, well, you can't use these substances, because substance abuse really is just a health issue. It's a health issue. It's a mental and physical health issue. So therefore, you have to make sure that they're healthy physically and mentally, but that should not bar them from having housing, permanent housing. And then it's like, well, it's a mental health issue. This is how you help the mentally ill? By saying, oh, you better get well first before we give you housing? What? What if we did that for physical health? Well, you got to be healthy before you could actually live in this house. I'd be homeless then. I'd be homeless. Because, you know, being somebody who's on kidney dialysis, I'm not at optimal health. It's crazy. So this is how similar Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis are. This is how similar they are. And yes, Florida has a homeless problem, right? It's the third most populous state for homelessness. After California and New York, Florida is the third most, right? It says, what are the leading causes of homelessness? It says housing. More than any other time, there's a lack of housing that low-income people can afford. Without housing options, people face eviction, instability, and homelessness. It says income. Low-income households often do not earn enough to pay for food, clothing, and transportation in a place they can call home. So we're talking about wages, living wages. Therefore, if you have a living wage, then it will make it easier for people to not be homeless. But yet, you guys don't want to raise the minimum wage. And the crazy part is we passed a $15 an hour minimum wage here in Florida that takes full effect in September of 2026, next year. And so it'll finally reach $15 an hour by next September. By September of next year. But that's not enough because we need to make it at least $35 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. So that's wholly inadequate. Right? Health and homelessness are inextricably linked. Health problems can cause a person's homelessness as well as be exacerbated by experience. Housing is key to addressing the health needs of people experiencing homelessness, including mental health, right? Domestic violence. Many survivors of domestic violence become homeless when leaving an abusive relationship. Do we care about victims of domestic violence or not? Racial inequality. Most minority groups in the United States experience homelessness at a higher rate than whites and therefore make up a disproportionate share of the homeless population. Let me ask you this question. How many Black Americans are homeless right now where reparations for freedmen would actually end their homelessness? I'm sorry, but we got to call a thing a thing. Because how many Black Americans, because I'm gonna tell you right now, doing mutual aid, when I get out there, who do I see mostly out in these streets? Black Americans, particularly a lot of Black American men that are out in these streets, subject to the elements, dealing with mental health issues. Some of them are veterans. And if they were to get reparations, then most likely I'd be willing to bet 99.95% would not be outside like that. Because we have what's called generational poverty. So that's the thing, man. So when people look at Gavin Newsom and think, oh, well, he's somewhat better than Ron DeSantis, no, that's complete and utter BS. BS. They are one and the same. Cut from the same cloth. They just don't want you to know it. This is why we have to walk away from both parties. This is why we got to start focusing our energies mostly on mutual aid. Now, if you can do other things like focus on ballot initiatives, focus on local government, fine, by all means. But mutual aid and building dual power needs to be at the top of your list. Because these guys, they're only going to fight for the corporate dictators that run them. And remember what Butch Ware said, who funds you, runs you. Well, guess what? They're being ran through by the billionaire class. So Gavin Newsom is a POS, just like Ron DeSantis. Yeah. So go ahead and give the stream a like. Thank you very much for that. Let's go into the chat. Let me check to see on the Rumble chat to see if I have any Rumble rants. Looks like we're good on the Rumble side. All right, cool. All right, so let's get into this. Eric T. Red says Democrats from Massachusetts. It's better here, but still corrupt AF. Yeah. Let me see. Whatever man says, I read Morgan's 420 bill. It was pro-corporate, and I was disgusted at how Morgan was using his brother to gain the 420 vote. Yeah, unfortunately. Let me see. Whatever man said, Pelosi's nephew and DeSantis are two cheeks of the same ass. Agreed. And says substance abuse could be a product of capitalism too. Yeah. So I'm reaching the end of my stream. I gotta get going because plus a brother is hungry. But I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. You know, doing this is a labor of love. Doing this is a labor of love, and I hope that you guys are able to, you know, continue to support independent media however you can. Again, if you guys would like to, you guys can also join via Kick and catch my streams on Kick if you would like to as well. Yeah, so that, you know, I can build that up. But yes, all right. Hopefully this is going to be kind of short. All right. I will read this one more, Roger, and then I have to go because I really have to get going. Let me see here. All right. So Roger says, here's my CBI for housing. Make it unconstitutional for housing to be treated as a commodity, but instead as a necessity and end tax subsidies to developers to build luxury housing that crowds out the rest of the population of low income, working poor, and working class people. And it will be the responsibility of the government to get homelessness off the street and into permanent housing with a housing first policy based on no preconditions to come before providing them with necessary social services that they need to treat the ailments that they have. 1.5% of the total housing market in each county must be decommodified. By removing housing from the speculative market and exploring alternative models like community land trusts, state ownership and control, as well as limited equity cooperatives, where residents rather than corporations, private equity groups, and real estate owns and controls housing. Well maintained, state-of-the-art, reliable, responsive within a week, and it comes to attending tenants' needs. Rent paid will be based on 20% of their monthly net income, not monthly gross income, regardless of income, and will be collected on a per tenant, not per apartment basis. 2.25% of tenants must make below $50,000. Within that half of them must make 25,000 minus. 3, it says 25% of tenants must make $50,000 to $100,000. 25% of tenants must make $100,000 to $150,000. And number 5, 25% of tenants must make $150,000 to $200,000. Allowing housing to be a perpetual state of affordability. When the owner wishes to sell the new value, they have the government pick up the paying of 50% of its appraisal value. When the new owner takes out a mortgage on the other 50%, those who fall under number 3 and number 4 will be allowed a tax write-off. While at the same time, those who live in commodified housing in the area who has decommodified housing in the neighborhood, their property value will increase faster than those who don't. All right. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. Drop your kick, JB. Okay. Let me share this. Let me see. There you go. All right. So that's the Kick link there. So you guys have it. And so, yes, let me see. Do I have any guests next week? Hang on. No, I'll just be doing news stories. So yeah, I'll be doing news stories. Also, look forward to me doing the continuing reading. The next reading is going to be of Water and the Spirit. And then I'll get into The Will to Change. And after that, I'll get into Presidential by Margaret Kimberly. So we'll be getting into those books as well. And for the most part, yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. This was a great stream, and I didn't hit 3 hours. Thank goodness. I'm so happy with myself. I did not want to hit 3 hours again. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have yourself a beautiful day. And look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them or not. The choice is yours. It's just your world. I'm just a squirrel trying to get in that. And thank you very much for that. Oh, and I also want to share this on the way out. There's a video that I want to share, and this will be on the way out. And I hope it makes you guys laugh, but it's also very substantive. It's about dark money. So let me make sure I have it set up. So yeah. But anyways, thank you guys so much. And I hope you guys have yourself a wonderful day. And we'll see you guys in the next one. All right. So, all righty. Take care, everybody. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Hey. Hi, what can I do for you? My friends and I want to donate some money to our boy over there. Yeah, for sure. And how much money? Unlimited. Unlimited. Yeah. Unlimited money. Yeah, just to show our support. Okay. Obviously, you're gonna need one of these. Yeah, no, totally. So you know the rules. You can only spend this on independent things like ads supporting him. For sure. Yeah. You can't ask him for anything in return. Oh, of course. No, we would never talk. We don't talk. And you have to show me the names of all your donors. Like everyone who donated to the bucket? Yeah, just so we know like who's trying to influence him and what their agenda might be. You know, you could be from a foreign country. Oh, yeah, no, that would be insane. So can I see your donors? Definitely, yes. He's right over here. That's your donor? That's a bag. It's a bag, yeah. It's a basically money goes into the bag and then it goes from the bag to the bucket. So my donor is the bag. Okay, but who's putting money in the bag? I don't have to tell you that legally. There's actually there's a special loophole for bags like this. So who was that? Who was that? I don't know who that was. All right, this is ridiculous. I have to get rid of this loophole and bring transparency back to our elections. So you're not going to do anything? Oh yeah, nothing. I mean, who do you think gave me this job? Hey! Oh, hey, okay. I see you. Hey. I see. Okay. Okay. Hey. Hi. What can I do for you?
Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.